Good evening and welcome to the April 11th, 2024 regular meeting of San Diego Community Power's Community Advisory Committee. My name is Matthew Vasilakis, Chair of the committee and the representative for the City of San Diego. After a brief pause in meetings with the cancellation of our March meeting, we welcome members of the public, San Diego Community Power staff, and our committee members joining us in person online today. I want to thank our exceptional SDCP staff for making this in-person meeting possible and the wonderful City of San Diego for accommodating us today. I will now call the April 11th, 2024 regular meeting of the San Diego Community Power or San Diego Community Advisory Committee of San Diego Community Power to order. I would like to note that Member Anderson is joining us virtually today under AB 2449. Could you please state for the record your reason for attending remotely and identify whether there is anyone 18 or over in the room with you, and if so, your relationship to that person?
Yeah, I'm participating today remotely under the Brown Act due to a chest infection of unknown origins. It's not COVID, but I thought for my sake and your sake, it would be best to do this remotely. There is nobody 18 or older in the house.
Great, thank you. Our meeting clerk, Megan Wagelman, will now call the roll.
Committee member Anderson.
Present remotely.
Committee member Price.
Here.
Committee member Emerson.
Here.
Committee member Castaneda. Here. Committee member Sandoval. Committee member Hammond.
Here.
Committee member Jans.
Present.
Committee member Sclafani.
Present.
Secretary Cazares. Here. Vice Chair Harris.
Here.
Chair Vasilakis.
Present.
We have a quorum.
Excellent. Committee member Emerson, will you please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Wonderful. We would now like to take a brief moment to provide a land acknowledgement, as the land on which we are conducting our meeting is the traditional territory of the Kumeyaay people, and we recognize the Kumeyaay Nation as the rightful stewards of this land. We continue with our commitment to learn from and work with local Indigenous communities to honor their sovereignty, respect their cultures, and support their efforts to heal from the intergenerational trauma and systemic injustices that continue to impact them today. Thank you to the Kumeyaay Nation and all the original stewards of this land. We look forward to working in collaboration to build a more just, sustainable, and resilient future for all. All right, we have a quorum present. First up on the agenda is special presentations and introductions. And today we would like to give a warm welcome to Linda Robertson, who is supporting our meeting today and joining SDCP staff as IT manager. Linda, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm Linda Robertson. I am the new IT manager. I come with 27 years of experience in IT. I've worked in the retail, hospitality, education, food distribution, pharmaceutical, and now renewed energy industry. I'm so excited to be here to bring new technology to in-house for SDCP, and I am excited to be a part of the community and join and volunteer. So I appreciate you having me here, and I'm excited to be a part of the team.
Thank you, Linda. Appreciate it. I also wanted to officially and publicly acknowledge the departure of committee member Anna Webb from our CAC, effective as of this past March 11th, 2024. Anna was a CAC member representing the city of Imperial Beach since 2020, and this body would like to recognize and honor her service by thanking her for her dedication and commitment to uplifting her community and being a tireless advocate of San Diego Community Power since before its creation. Anna has moved away from California and will be missed by everyone in this dais. Thank you, Anna. And that concludes special presentations for today. All right, non-agenda public comment. We will now take that up. Written public comment, just the
items to be withdrawn or reordered.
Oh, that's at the end of the script here. Well, we can definitely do that. Preference? Yeah. Oh, no worries. Yeah, we'll now take up non-agenda public comments. Note that written public comments submitted before the committee meeting and email to CAC staff members prior to the committee meeting and we posted on the website at the beginning of the meeting. Megan, do we have any non-agenda public comment?
We do not.
Great. Are there any items to be withdrawn or reordered?
Yes, Chair, we'd like to pull regular agenda item number 7, please.
All right, thank you. Item 7 is being removed. All right, we'll move on to the consent calendar or agenda. The consent calendar contains items that can be approved as a package without discussion unless a CAC member requests that an item be removed for separate discussion and action. The CAC receives staff reports for all items on the consent agenda, and staff provided an opportunity for questions and comments during briefings prior to this meeting. Today's consent agenda includes 1, approval of the February 8th, 2024 CAC meeting minutes. 2, update on marketing, public relations, and local government affairs. 3, update on customer operations. 4, update on regulatory and legislative affairs. And 5, update on programs. Megan, do we have any public comment on any of these items?
We do not.
Is there anyone who would like to remove any item from the consent agenda for a separate vote? All right. Seeing no objections or requests for removal, I will now turn it over to the committee members for a motion to approve the consent agenda. Do we have a motion? Committee member Castaneda. Is there a second?
Second.
Vice Chair Harris. Clerk, we have a motion. Clerk, can we please call the vote?
Committee member Anderson, how do you vote?
Aye.
Committee member Price, how do you vote?
Aye.
Committee member Emerson, how do you vote?
Yes.
Committee member Castaneda, how do you vote? Aye. Committee member Hammond, how do you vote?
Aye.
Committee member Jans, how do you vote?
Aye.
Committee member Sclafani, how do you vote?
Aye.
Secretary Cazares, how do you vote? Aye. Vice Chair Harris, how do you vote?
Aye.
Chair Vasilakis, how do you vote?
Aye.
Motion carries with all committee members voting yes.
Thank you. We will now move on to the regular agenda, starting with item 6. Item 6, update on vehicle grid integration strategy overview. I will turn it over to staff joining us virtually to present this item. Please state your name and title for the record.
Yes, my name is Tim Treadwell. I'm the Senior Program Manager.
Thank you. Please proceed with your presentation.
Great, thank you for having me. I'm going to provide an update today on our vehicle grid integration strategy for the programs team. So I want to start off by providing an overview of where we're going. So this presentation will provide a very brief intro on the electric vehicle market in the county and the growth that we've seen in recent years. Looking at the opportunities that this class of vehicle provides for load serving entities like SDCP and how it supports the flexible load strategy that we presented to the CAC back in December. And then finally, we'll look at recommendations for VGI strategies moving forward. Next slide. So you all have probably seen this in your respective communities, but electric vehicle adoption has been growing rapidly since mass market vehicles became available. We've seen pretty significant and steady growth year over year with a slight dip during COVID, but it's picked back up and it's growing pretty rapidly. Where as of the date of this data poll, which was early 2023, we were at 120,000 vehicles in the county as a whole. And this takes into account both full battery electric and plug-in hybrid electric vehicles. Next slide. So with the understanding of the potential that these vehicles hold as grid operational resources, the state kind of initiated a process for building out a framework to integrate them in the grid through Senate Bill 676 and subsequent decisions by the Public Utilities Commission. The commission defined vehicle grid integration, or VGI, as we call it. I won't read you the definition, but basically it's any way, any time or method for altering the when, where, and how electric vehicles charge that delivers benefits to ratepayers. And that's pretty broadly speaking benefits. So increasing the utilization of existing resources, avoiding the need to upgrade or add new infrastructure, integrating renewables, reducing cost, or providing grid services like resource adequacy, which we're responsible for, and that's a huge motivation for SDCP and providing low cost electricity to our customers. Next slide. So as we think about kind of VGI strategies broadly, the base case here is unmanaged charging. So someone purchases a new EV, they come home, they plug it in, they charge it when they return home from a trip, when they think they need it. Next. And you can move up this strategic hierarchy, this in terms of complexity and the technology employed, going from unmanaged charging to V1G. So V1G is simply managing when the electrons are delivered into the battery. Unidirectional, so it's just one way, just going into the vehicle itself, but helping the customer to make good decisions around when they charge their vehicle based on the needs of the grid. So you can do this behaviorally through a time of use rate, or you can do this through a technology solution, like we'll talk about a little later on today. Next. The next kind of level of VGI in terms of complexity and value is vehicle to building or vehicle to home. Now we've kind of moved beyond basic V1G and we're in the V2G space, or V to X as a broader category. So vehicle to building or vehicle to home, this is when you not only control when electrons go in the vehicle, but you control when they come back out of the vehicle. And you can use the energy stored in the vehicle to provide power and help manage the use in the building that it's connected to, so behind the service meter. And we'll talk about some of the value streams associated with that. But this is limited to behind the meter, so it's not interacting with the grid itself. And then next. And finally, you have vehicle to grid, which is the most advanced use case, the most value, and the most complexity. So this is using the stored energy in an electric vehicle battery and pushing that energy back out to not only reduce site load, but actually go across the meter onto the grid and provide grid services. And there's a lot of value here that we will explore in a few moments. Next. Okay, so digging into V1G, again, this is about how and when you put electrons into the battery. So helping the customer to make good decisions that are good for grid operation, overall service cost, and frankly for their own bill. And we do this through telematics, vehicle telematics. So most EVs have the ability to communicate with the cloud of the vehicle maker, the OEM. And there are software solutions that allow load serving entities like SDCP to interact with the cloud software and communicate with the vehicles to set the charge timer. The same way that you as an EV owner or driver would use your app for Tesla or Ford or Chevy to interact with your vehicle and set your charge time. We're basically going into that same data stream with customers' consent and helping them manage when they charge. Now, again, broken record, this does not involve electrons going back onto the grid. So this is just managing when the power goes into the battery. Next slide. So why would we do this? There are a number of opportunities that V1G provides to load serving entities, and SDCP specifically. The first is participant bill savings. So by enrolling customers in this type of a pilot, we could help them optimize their schedule around time of use rates. A lot of customers are already doing this. They're responding to their TOU rate schedule, but some of the data we've seen, there are customers that aren't. So this provides us an opportunity to help them optimize around their TOU and also provide them with monthly closeout reporting so they can see kind of when they were home, when they were plugged in, and how they were doing in terms of that optimization. In addition to participant bill savings, we can get indirect bill savings for all customers. And these next two kind of categories you should recognize from the flex load strategy. It's about reducing operating costs for SDCP, which drives our rates. So the first is energy procurement. If we can help customers move consumption from expensive on-peak times to less expensive off-peak times, charging overnight, then we lower our cost of service. Similarly, if we move customers' load away from that evening peak, we're also reducing our obligation for expensive resource adequacy procurement, which is a major driver of our cost. Next slide. And a number of load serving entities are playing with this now and kind of exploring the viability and the value to their respective organizations. This is a summary of a program that a pilot is being run by Peninsula Clean Energy. They enrolled about 700 customers to see how V1G operations could help reduce their peak, reduce their cost and the cost of participants. And they embedded an additional experiment in this program to see how incentives and active management of vehicle charge interacted with rates. So they introduced a few experimental rate schedules, excuse me, to see how each performed and the interaction of the two. And they found that customers were generally really excited about the program. They had high retention rates. They found an optimal incentive level set at $100 to get people to sign up. And they found that once customers were signed up and enrolled, they got so much value from the program that it didn't really unenroll even at relatively low ongoing rates of incentives. And they found about a $12.50 bill savings per month for each participant. Next slide. Give you one more example. This is from Pacific Gas and Electric. They did a similar program using a company called WeaveGrid, and they were striving to manage charging around grid efficiency and operating cost. And they had an interesting element to their program where they sought out customers who lived in public safety power shutoff areas, so PSPS areas, and they actually worked with their vendor to integrate their PSPS signal into the charge control scheme. So when there was a PSPS event planned and they started mobilizing all of their internal utility resources to plan for the event, they sent a signal to the vehicles and had the vehicles charge up regardless of the rate schedule so that it was fully charged and ready to go when the power went out. They were able to enroll about 3,500 customers. If you can go back, able to enroll about 3,500 customers. They provided a little bit lower incentive, but they got a lot of positive feedback from customers on their help optimizing their usage. Now next. So switching over now from V1G to bidirectional charging, or V2X. Next. So V2X charging, if you can click next for me. Thanks. So V2X charging, as we mentioned earlier, not only manages the flow of electrons into the batteries, next, but also, and one more time, the electrons going out of the batteries. So there's different degrees of operations here. There's vehicle to home and vehicle to building, where we kind of go up to the meter, and there's vehicle to grid, where we go back across the meter. This is a really exciting technology. It's relatively new, but it holds a great deal of opportunity in terms of cost savings for both the customer and for the load serving entity, as well as the state, the independent system operator. And I think one of the reasons it's so exciting is that current estimates are that there's 5 times more energy storage potential rolling around the state in electric vehicles than there are in stationary storage applications, and it's largely untapped from an export in terms of its value as an export resource. Next. So I mentioned that V2X has 2 broad categories. The first is vehicle to home or vehicle to building. So you can think of this as traditional load management. You're discharging from the battery to manage the load on site and reduce it down to as close as possible to zero. And this can be done both in a grid parallel sense. So it's normal operation, the grid is up and running, and you're discharging the battery to reduce on-site load, the associated capacity and energy demand, and the cost. Or it can be done in an islanded mode where the grid drops offline, a transfer switch turns, and then a battery engages, and you can use the vehicle to power your inverter in your home. The benefits, obviously, in that parallel situation are cost savings. The benefit in the offline, the islanded situation is resiliency. Limitations are that if this system is set up to be in parallel operation, the utility will assume that it will operate in parallel and it needs to be interconnected. So all the associated interconnection requirements, for those of you who are familiar with solar interconnection, it's very similar to that. Next. And then vehicle to grid. So this is going one step further. Now we're pushing electrons back across the meter. Again, you can manage site load down to zero and even beyond zero. You can be a net generator with vehicle to grid, delivering significant cost savings for the customer, the LSC, but also for the system operator. Next slide. And I won't go into detail on this table, but I think I'm bringing it up to show that there are numerous applications and value streams that these different bidirectional charging structures can have. It all depends on the markets available. It depends on the load serving entity and some of the regulations, but it's a large untapped resource. Next slide. And the value that we get from V2X or bidirectional charging, vehicle to grid charging, it falls with different organizations who are operating across the spectrum, from LSEs like us to distribution operators like SDG&E and large-scale transmission operators like the independent system operator in California, CAISO. And so I think the big takeaway here is when you move on this graph on the right, when you move from the unmanaged charging scenario, kind of the bottom of that pyramid we saw earlier, it's unmanaged charging, it's unmanaged cost. Customer plugs in when they get home, it strains the grid, it creates increased energy demand at high cost periods, it drives resource adequacy and all the associated requirements. As you move to the V1G space, we've really reduced significantly the cost of the energy and the resource adequacy, delivering significant savings from managing that vehicle. And then when you move to the vehicle to grid space, you actually gone from managing the downside of electric vehicle to actually creating a source of value. And not only are you avoiding RA, but you're actually generating an RA resource and you're generating an energy resource and you're really driving value for the grid. And again, that value, those stacked bars are kind of are realized at various different points in the management of the grid, from SDCP, SDG&E, and the ISO. Next slide. So wrapping up here, I'm going to kind of show where we would like to go in the strategy to explore some of this among our customer base and kind of understand how it influences our operation. The first is a V1G pilot. So we'd like to do a small scale pilot in the order of hundreds of customers. We want to work with those customers to optimize their schedule based on their own needs. So their departure time, their nominated capacity, when and how they need their vehicles, make sure that we meet that need first. And then within the context of their requirements and kind of specifications, make sure that they're charging their vehicle in the most optimal way possible to reduce their bill. At the same time, helping us reduce RA and energy and deliver cost savings for all customers. And we would also like to do a vehicle to X bidirectional charging demonstration. So pilot for V1G, demonstration for V2G, or V2X rather, and a demonstration in that we're looking at tens of customers. So this is brand new technology. The state has made funding available to kind of get some of this technology out into the market, and there's known unknowns here. It's new equipment interacting with new vehicles, and all of that is overlaying on the customer's needs. So our customer's home, are they plugged in? Are they willing to nominate their power to be discharged back onto their homes or to the grid when it's needed? So we want to kind of kick the tires on that, test it out, see the value, understand the benefit to SDCP, and if it's warranted, come back to you and talk about a broader pilot and ultimately program. And one thing to note here is that we plan to coordinate with the CEC awardees. We've been in conversation with them, so we're understanding what additional state funding is already on the table. And we want to do some strategic partnerships to drive that funding down to the San Diego region and get that installed among our customer base. Next slide. And this is my final slide, just to give you a sense of kind of where we are today and where we're headed with this. So the programs team has been working on this strategy for the end of last year and through Q1 of this year. We've been planning out our pilots. We want to continue that through Q2. Q3, we'd like to go to market to engage with vendors of the V1G and the V2X, and then ultimately begin implementation in Q4 if all goes according to plan, and start enrolling customers at that point. And that is my last slide. If there are questions, I'm happy to answer any.
Thank you. Megan, do we have any public comment on this item?
We do not.
Thank you. I will now turn over to CAC members for comments. Committee member Price.
I have 3, but I forgot one. When you said that if my EV vehicle, I would have to get it permitted to do this, kind of like installing a inverter or solar.
If you were to install a bidirectional charger that had grid export capabilities, the utility would require an interconnection agreement similar to a solar net generator. Yes.
And what is the cost of that? Ballpark.
That's one of the things we want to better understand, honestly. The CEC funding that's available is pretty significant. I've spoken to the 2 awardees, and I think the plan, if we were to move forward with this, would be to provide an additional incentive on top of what's already available for those limited number of demonstration project sites, so that we can collect that information and really understand it, get a better sense of the economics, and understand whether or not we can scale it effectively, and if it's a good value for customers.
Okay, thank you. And secondly, will the customer with the EV vehicle know that you're taking energy out of their vehicle and that there's enough left to go to the store?
100%. So the customer would nominate the amount of charge that they are willing to give up for grid services. And that would be a threshold criteria we wouldn't go below. So in my talking with some of the bidirectional charge management companies, they generally set that threshold at 50%. So, most EVs come home at the end of the day with a relatively high state of charge on the order of 80%. And that varies widely by, customer driving behavior, but generally speaking, it's pretty high. So as an example, if you come home at 80%, you set a 50% threshold, depending on the size of your battery, that's maybe 25, 26 kilowatt hours that's available. These chargers discharge at a rate of 11.5 max kW. So we could spread that charge out over 5 hours and get significant benefit equal to or greater than what we'd see from a stationary battery. So it's a pretty nice amount of power, even with a 50% holdback. So if the customer said, gosh, I need to run out, they wouldn't walk out to a dead battery. They'd walk out to ample range for most instances. And they have the ability to opt out if they have a trip planned or they don't want to participate in an event.
Okay, and thirdly, what is the compensation for the energy that is being taken out of the battery?
Yeah, good question. So this is all things that we need to work out in the demonstration project design, but conceptually the value, there's a few different value streams. There's first off, for this pilot with state funding, there is the value of the electric vehicle charging equipment, the bidirectional charger. So the hardware, the transfer switch, the permitting, the contracting, the interconnection, all of that is north of $10,000. The state's buying that down. We would provide an additional incentive for the customer. So there's the upfront incentive value. And then once the program's up and running, we would do the managed discharge, and we would compensate the customer monthly for participation in the program with a small bill credit TBD amount to their bill just for remaining in the program. But honestly, the bigger value for the customer is that they would be discharging the battery and having their their meter either go down to zero, or in the case of vehicle to grid, spin backwards during the most expensive periods of the day for consumption and getting a credit for that, or at a minimum avoiding that consumption. And then we would recharge at night in the off-peak period from midnight to 6 a.m. when prices are significantly lower. So the customer would experience both an upfront credit for the equipment, a monthly credit for participation, but more importantly, a significant bill savings due to the price differential from when they're discharging energy from the battery and when we would recharge it later in the overnight period.
Okay, thank you.
Committee member Hammond?
Peter had his hand raised before me. Peter, did you retract yours?
No, my question was preempted and it's been answered. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I was curious, if someone's on net metering, will they need a separate meter for this?
Really good question. I don't know, to be honest. We need to work through that with SDG&E. The companies who are setting this up have been engaging with the NIM departments at all 3 IOUs, and that's one of the unanswered questions that we have. Unlikely they would need a separate meter, but the specific configuration, I don't know.
Okay, thank you. And I would just recommend coming to us when you are looking for potential people to enroll in the pilot program to have the CAC help spread the word.
Great, I appreciate that.
Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Committee member Johns?
Just kind of following up on that, would you see some opportunity in the future for a market pricing type of situation where a vehicle to grid customer could set conditions on just what the going rate is, so on when there's spikes in the instantaneous wholesale price of electricity, they could wait and then jump in.
Yeah, definitely.
Is there any thought to that? I guess is my question.
I definitely thought to it. I think the pricing and compensation structure, the opportunities to innovate on the design of that are endless. And we're really excited about it. There has been some work on the school buses and other larger, non-light duty vehicles that they're focused on CAISO market integration. I think our focus in this strategy near term is to kind of understand how the equipment operates, understand customers' responsiveness and receptiveness to having us discharge the battery, and really getting the customer and ourselves comfortable with how it all fits together. And once we do that, we would start to innovate around design and pricing signals. But there's no reason why we couldn't do a CAISO market integrated signal, or even one that kind of where we optimize around the TOU so that the customer is paying a known amount, and then at the same time we do a CAISO market signal on kind of overlaid with that, so we maximize the spread between the wholesale and retail rate, driving cost savings for us with no difference to the customer's bill.
And I have a second question. I'm wondering if there is somehow buried in this a incentive for typical residential customers to install solar, even solar in excess of just what their consumption requirements are. In other words, the thought is, well, they could, make money by putting electricity back in the grid, so they could, boost their solar to get the car charged without depending upon the overnight charging from the grid. So I'm wondering if there's, if it's a hidden incentive possibly for residential solar, or if maybe there's ways to incentivize residential solar even more as complementary to this program.
It's a really good question. I'm sure there are a lot of nuances around that that we won't fully understand until we kind of get into it. That's the type of learning that we're hoping to achieve through the demonstration project.
Well, thank you very much. This is really exciting.
Thank you.
Secretary DeSantis.
Thank you for this presentation. My first question that I had, you answered, which was regarding what happens if there's a planned blackout or brownout. So I think it's really unique that this technology will plan ahead for you by charging your vehicle if it's plugged in so that it's fully charged when you might need it. I have two questions. One is, I think, a little more simple. What does it do to the life of a battery if it's exporting energy out to the grid? Is that going to have a significant impact on the battery life of, say, your vehicle battery? Or do we know? Is that something we're still exploring?
Yeah, good question. I want to have a point of clarification first. You mentioned charging around outages. Just to be really precise about my point earlier in the PG&E pilot, that was around public safety power shutoff events. So those are known outages that are planned to avoid fires related to downed equipment. So,
Right.
you know, there will always be unknown outages. You know, car hits a pole, tree limb falls on the branch, that kind of thing. And those are, you know, by definition unknown, so can't be planned for. So you wouldn't be able to prepare for that through any type of a program like this. Just wanted to make that point, clarification rather. With regards to battery health, one of the major limitations of bidirectional charging technology to date has been hesitancy of the vehicle manufacturers to allow for this to occur without violating their warranty. So that's the major drawback or the major limitation. There are now protocols and standards available that vehicles and chargers are certified to, that the vehicle OEMs have been participating in, that has allowed them to get comfortable with this. As it stands today, there is one OEM that is allowing bidirectional charging to happen with this the technology that in question here, and that's Kia. There is a large number of vehicle OEMs that are right on the edge of jumping in. So this is a good time to kind of test it out. I think there's a small population that will be eligible for it. Probably by the time if you can visualize that timeline of activities, by the time we get ready to enroll customers, I think more vehicles or OEMs will be over the hump and will allow participation. But the key takeaway here is that battery health is critical. Being deferential to the vehicle warranty is non-negotiable for anyone involved, and the OEMs actually won't let their vehicles participate until they're comfortable with both of those things.
That was super helpful. Thank you very much.
And sorry, did you have a second question?
Answer the question?
No, I didn't.
You said two questions.
Oh. I did. I can ask it. I decided I was going to defer, but I'll ask, once this has been more tested, is there going to be, do you foresee a possibility for, you know, industry or municipal governments that are charging fleets to be able to opt into a similar type of program? Or do we feel like we're still pretty far out from that being a possibility? Obviously, upfront, it's going to be residential.
Most of the bidirectional charging projects that have been done to date have actually been non-residential. They've been school buses and that type of heavy duty equipment. The residential space has been more limited. I think, I don't know, I'm hesitant to say what SDCP will do. I think as we begin to get more of this technology out in the field and there's a greater level of comfort and understanding of how it works and its safety and reliability and impacts on your charge and your ability to drive your vehicle. I would expect to see more proliferation of it across customer types, including municipal customers. So I think it's likely. I'd hate to kind of telegraph where we're going to go with it until we have some data.
Thank you.
Member Emerson?
Yes, Timothy, thanks for the presentation. And how would you like to make that presentation at the Electric Vehicle Association of San Diego? I'm sure they'd love it. Is he still there?
Yeah, potentially, yeah.
And we can do it in person. We meet on the second Wednesday of every month at 6 p.m. Or we have had presentations done remotely through Zoom or whatnot. So either or, I think it'd be great, especially if you want to get the word out when you're ready. To get the word out and kind of advertise. You're looking for people, so the timing could be later this year. But before you're trying to get people to sign up, then we could also include an article in our monthly newsletter. The Electric Vehicle Association could and send out what the plan is and let them know in advance. So keep that in mind, and we'll coordinate. I had two questions. The bidirectional charging. Did you say that Pennsylvania or PG&E were already testing the bidirectional charging?
I didn't say that. I said that Peninsula Clean Energy, PCE, which is a community choice aggregator up in the Bay Area, was running a V1G pilot. So they were doing and Pacific Gas and Electric was similarly running a V1G pilot.
Okay.
I didn't say this, but there are a number of V2G and V2X broadly pilots underway. I believe that PG&E is running one, and there are a number of them across the state, and they vary from small scale, tens of customers in the light duty space. There's a number of school bus bidirectional charging demonstration projects that are active as well across the country. And so it's a mix. I think this is a space that everyone's excited about and people are starting to explore.
Looking at your schedule you presented earlier, what if you did come to do a presentation at the Electric Vehicle Association, what month do you think would be good timing?
I think we should probably take that offline and coordinate. I'd like to see how far along we are and how it aligns with your meeting schedule.
Okay, very good.
Member Price?
You may have answered this question with the young lady's question, but does this have any impact on the degradation of the battery charging and discharging every night or whenever it happens? And I had another question. I might remember it while you answer that one.
I think we addressed this a bit earlier. The vehicle manufacturers are at the table, and no vehicle would participate in a bidirectional charging demonstration without their authorization. So there are standards that the vehicles they go through for testing, and the vehicle OEMs are they kind of govern which vehicles are allowed to participate. So we basically make sure it's okay with them before we would do anything like that.
So what I'm hearing is the relationship with Kia doesn't have an impact on the lifespan of the battery through their OEM process, correct?
Yeah, how I would characterize that is Kia is comfortable letting their vehicles participate in this type of a program, given the specified equipment, that it's not going to impact the vehicle. And they're the experts. I would defer to them on that determination.
Okay, and secondly, on that 50%, I guess it's a 50% floor about how much can be discharged. Can that be changed to like 25% if somebody agrees to that?
Yeah, so you're kind of deep into program design now, and I kind of use that 50% as a illustrative example. In the conversations I've had with a few folks operating in this space, that seems like a floor that customers are comfortable with. But I think the specifics of the demonstration would be contingent on the participants and kind of the discussions we have. I'd hate to specify any kind of firm requirements here at this point.
Thank you.
Vice Chair Harris?
I just wanted to ask if you would expand a bit more on the benefits to SDCP down the line for resource adequacy. And let's say 10 years from now, when there's a full-scale program in place, and the technology's been tested and is demonstrating significant savings for the consumer, for the CCA. What is the potential impact on resource adequacy requirements, and will it require regulatory changes for that benefit to be realized?
Conceptually, I think the potential benefits are really large. It's an interesting time for resource adequacy right now. We're moving from the existing rules where your monthly commitment is based off your peak hour to what is known as slice of day. So each month we will be responsible for procuring 24 individual hours of resource adequacy. And this type of a technology allows us to move load around significantly. So I think in a future state with widespread application of bidirectional charging, we would be able to shape our load around the lowest price periods. Not fully shape it, but influence the shape of it around lowest price periods, which would be significant in terms of its ability to reduce operating costs. I generally pretty cautious, so I would your characterization of when we scale this in a full-blown program. I would say we test it in a demonstration project, we run it in a pilot, and then we see if it's viable for a program. But assuming that all those things move forward, I think the opportunity is very large. In terms of the regulatory changes with regards to resource adequacy, that's kind of out of our hands. The independent system operator has evolved the resource adequacy requirement significantly in the last decade, and we're in the midst of a pretty major change right now. The one I just alluded to, the single hour benchmark to a 24-hour benchmark. So, over the next 10 years, as this type of technology and other new technology proliferates, I'm sure that the market is going to evolve with it. And I'd be hesitant to say where it goes, but I think this will, regardless of the outcome of that process, this will have a significant value.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? All right, I don't have any specific questions, Timothy, but I really appreciate your presentation. I know this is a lot of in the weeds technical analysis, and it requires a lot of very careful thinking and coordination with a lot of our partners who are ahead of us on this front. And I appreciate you pioneering this for SDCP. I think my only comments are related to when we eventually get to marketing and messaging, just like how we're going to distill this in terms of what the value add is for the customer. And I know that we're definitely going to want to be transparent about what the value is for SDCP, but definitely not elevating that point when we talk to customers who aren't going to understand it or care. But yeah, I just think that if we can find the right folks to bring into the pilot, who then can be brought into the conversation in terms of how we want to have them be trusted messengers for community, so that we can get further uptake and build that trust and build SDCP's brand, that will be phenomenal. So I think this pilot could really provide us that unique opportunity to build that trust, to especially engage hopefully with community-based organizations that have that trust already, and then work from there to identify that pool of pilot folks who can be our champions for this. So thank you. Just a bunch of rambling comments, but really, really excited to see the program design of this fall.
Great. Well, thank you for your time.
Thank you. All right. Well, with that, so yeah, this is just receiving facts. So we're going to move on. Item 7 has been pulled from the agenda, so we will move to item 8, which is an update on the Power 100 Ad Hoc Committee. So I'll turn it over to Secretary Casares to provide a report.
Thank you. So the community grant program ad hoc committee, which is not the title, I don't think. I'm reading talking points. The Power 100 ad hoc committee met on February 27th, and members appointed during our last CAC regular meeting were Aida Castaneda from National City, Tara Hammond from Encinitas, Elian Sandoval from Imperial Beach, Peter Anderson from the County of San Diego, and myself, Laura Casares from the City of La Mesa. And during our first meeting, we did a lot of listening and hearing more about how the Power 100 program is already working at San Diego Community Power. So we learned about the current premium and energy sources, as well as the current Power 100 Champion program benefits. During its future, our ad hoc committee will discuss opportunities to educate and promote the Power 100 Champions program to businesses within our communities, and want to really uplift community businesses that could become SDCP ambassadors, and in turn provide feedback to members regarding potential barriers to program participation. And as a reminder to this body, any ad hoc committee of the CAC may meet with staff or on its own and may provide feedback, conduct research, gather data, analyze information, and provide reports on discussions during our monthly meetings. So I think for the future of this committee, it's going to be really committee member heavy. So I'm looking forward to our next meeting.
All right, great. Thank you. Megan, do we have any public comment on this item?
We do not.
Great. Any CAC member comments?
I just,
Vice Chair Harris?
just wondered about the timeline for the ad hoc committee, since it's usually 6 months or less. Do you have any idea?
We haven't established a formal timeline, but I know we have up to 1 year. Is that correct? Yes. So we'll figure it out as we go, but we've only met once. And it was, again, mostly listening. So we have more to discuss and plan, like the timeline.
Excellent.
Any other questions or comments from the committee?
Yes,
Oh, Committee Member Anderson?
yes, two questions. When is the next meeting of the Power 100 Ad Hoc Committee?
It's not scheduled yet. It's been difficult to get everyone's schedules in alignment, but hopefully within the next month.
Yeah, I remember responding, but I didn't hear a response. All right. It would be very valuable to once again have some staff members that know about the availability of power, given that we could not at this point enroll everyone in a Power 100 program because we wouldn't have enough renewable power. So that's the kind of thing we really need some expert advice on. I was a communication professor for 45 years. I can give you all kinds of wonderful advice about a persuasion campaign. But if we're trying to sell something that we can't sell, we need to know that.
Thank you for the comment.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? All right, we will receive and file and move on to our standing items. As a reminder, standing items are this time is discussion of potential agenda items for board director meetings. So as a reminder, the CAC may suggest agenda items for a board of directors meeting agenda by communicating with the CAC chair and designated SDCP staff before and or after a regular CAC meeting. If suggested at the time, there shall be no discussion or action by the CAC unless the item has been included on the CAC agenda. Do any of our CAC members have recommendations on potential items for our board of directors? Any recommendations? All right, I see none. Thank you for that. Let's move on to committee member announcements. Do any of our CAC members have items they'd like to share today? Committee Member Price?
I'm in the process of resigning from the CAC, so I just wanted everybody to know that. Because I don't know how the process goes. Normally when I quit something, I just get up and walk out the door, but I think, this organization deserves a little bit more respect than that. So I'll be figuring out how to exactly do that.
Thank you, Committee Member Price, for the announcement. And yes, I'm sure you'll work with CEO on that transition, and not sure what your timeline is for that, but you will be sorely missed.
Definitely.
Yes. Okay. Wow. Other announcements. Secretary Casetas.
Just a reminder for everyone to come out on April 20th in the morning. We have the La Mesa Earth Day Festival out at MacArthur Park, and I think San Diego Community Power is going to be there. It's going to be a great time. We are also going to have a fix-it clinic. So if you have any electronics that you need fixed there, you can bring them in, and some different trade-in programs available. So it'll be fun for kids and folks of all ages. So come on down.
Could you elaborate more on the Fix It program? Like, you gonna have a bunch of tweakers out there tweaking on it, or how's that gonna work?
Yeah, there's gonna be folks who are good at that kind of thing. It's not me out there working on things. But so far I've heard that we have a council member bringing in their blender, and all kinds of things. So bring it down.
Margaritas.
Okay, thank you.
There will be food. I don't think there will be alcohol.
Committee Member Johns, and then I'll do Committee Member Haney.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention that the Encinitas Spring Street Fair is the weekend of the 27th and 28th.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah, it's we discussed possibly having a table, but realize, you know, there's limited bandwidth, but just come down to Encinitas. Have a good time.
Oh, okay.
You tense in
I'm over.
It's part Australian, that's right.
Thank you. Committee Member Hammond?
Thank you. I know it was sent out via email to our committee, but wanted to remind you and share with the public that there's a pickleball fundraiser for the Sherman Heights Community Center Clean Energy Project, which is, there's a grant from SDCP last year that's going towards this project, and it's to raise the final amount so they don't have to take out a loan for this clean energy project. It's on April 27th from 3:30 to 5:30 p.m. at the Barnes Tennis Center. And if you go to Hammond Climate Solution Foundation social media post, there's links to register. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other committee member announcements? Committee Member Emerson?
Yes, oops. Good evening. Yes, a couple of items, and remind me, who are the San Diego representatives? I don't want to hear in, right? Yes.
Yes.
Well, this was in our newsletter, EV newsletter. They said the city of San Diego vehicles are going green. San Diego Police Department, Development Service Department, and Park and Rec Department are getting new electric vehicles, and including 22 Ford Mach-E's, 3 Ford 150 Lightning trucks. And of course, all of these will support the climate action plan of the city. And I was walking through my neighborhood military housing, and I saw an Ioniq 6 with a government license plate on it. And I talked to the guy. He said he just got it 2 days ago. So the military is starting to ship more to electric vehicles. And he said something about 2028 that they're going to be getting a lot more electric vehicles in their fleet. So that's it's happening. Many cities across the country and the military. That's one announcement. The other announcement is, of course, April is Earth month of Earth Days. A lot of places are having Earth Day events, and the Electric Vehicle Association is showing up at a lot of them. There's going to be one on the 14th, Sunday, at Rancho Bernardo Earth Day. And then there's the Balboa Park Earth Fest on the Saturday the 20th, also the same date as the La Mesa. I'm going to be at the La Mesa event with my electric vehicle. We're still looking for a few more electric vehicles. So if you know somebody who wants to participate, we had like 7 on display last year. And then on the 27th, Spring Valley Day, they're going to be, these are all on the electric vehicle San Diego EV.org website. And then on In Coronado on the 28th, they're going to have a motor car display on Main Street, including electric vehicles. And then in the month of May on the 5th, there's going to be a lung force walk, where they're going to have electric, bicycles and electric vehicles are on display. So just a heads up on all of those activities. And just a tidbit is one of the most favorable cities for electric vehicles as far as the ratio of chargers to residents. And the top 3 in the nation are here in California: San Francisco, Oakland, San Jose area, San Diego, and Los Angeles all make the top 1, 2, 3 as far as chargers. So in San Diego, if you didn't realize that we have more chargers than people realize, and they're growing. So just FYI, and hope to see you at you can participate at one of the Earth Day events in April. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other benefits?
Yeah, and based on what he just mentioned about the city buying all these Mustangs and F-150s and stuff, the city has done a disastrous job at disaster relief for the people that have been affected in these floods. And so one of the comments I had was save a few of those Mustangs and actually reply to these people that have been affected by this flood. And that brings up the conversation, does San Diego Community Power would like to be involved or have any desire to deal with these communities that were devastated by this unnatural disaster? Because the natural disaster God does, but man did this one. Because those residents have been complaining about the storm channels for decades, and they weren't cleaned. Including the week before the flood, one of the residents complained about it, and they were told that they're working on it. So from a humane standpoint, I think San Diego Community Power would be able to do something for those communities of concern that were the only communities that were affected during this, as well as the city and the county really need to step up, because it's turning into I'm trying to find a word not to cuss, but it's hard because it's turning into a shit show, right? And the delta between the victims and the city and the county and FEMA is growing wider and wider. And there's nobody really that has any compassion for these flood victims, and they're treating them like they're illegal aliens that don't have a right to be here or something, right? I mean, they're giving them $22 a day per person to eat. I don't know what you could buy for $22 a day to eat, but they have to spend it that day because they can't, save 3 days so they can get a real meal. Anyhow, so, as we're looking at all these beautiful things that have access to and all these wonderful things that we can do, I'd just like everybody to remember that there is a certain communities in our city, in our county, that have been disrespected and continue to be disrespected by altruistic opportunists that are coming in trying to buy their houses, the homeowners that own the homes and they're renting to these people who have been renting to these people for the last 20 years are taking this as an opportunity to actually use the FEMA money to upgrade the house, to sell the house.
Excuse me, Member Price, I think we're getting a little off topic.
Yeah, all right. Yeah, that's why I'm resigning, because I stay off topic. Yeah.
Well, thank you, community member, for elevating this unnatural disaster.
Yeah.
And looking forward to further conversations offline. Community member Anderson, did you have a comment unrelated?
Unrelated to the last comment, although I agree with it. It's an announcement that Sierra Club has a new headquarters at 4241 Jutland Drive. It's right off the trolley stop, kind of down near Miranda Boulevard and the Costco. Once again, it's 4241 Jutland Drive, Suite 303. And we have an open house this Saturday, the 13th, from noon to 4. So if any interested in stopping by, you'd be more than welcome.
Thank you, committee member Henderson. Any other comments, questions? Sorry, comments, announcements? Announcements. All right, well, that brings an end to our agenda. I appreciate everyone's participation today. We are adjourned until our next regular scheduled meeting on May 9th, 2024. We are adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.